The sun streamed gently through the window of Zara's modest yet elegantly furnished apartment, casting golden rays on the soft ivory fabric of her wedding dress hanging by the wardrobe. It was exactly 3 days before her wedding, and everything in her world felt perfectly aligned, at least on the surface. Zara Khan, 29, was a woman who lived with intentional grace. A literature professor at a local college in Islamabad, she was known for her poetic soul, her warm demeanor, and an enduring optimism that made even the hardest hearts soften in her presence. Her life, though not extravagantly rich, was rich in meaning. She believed in the power of words, the beauty of love, and above all, destiny. For as long as she could remember, Zara had dreamed of a love like the one she taught about in class. And when she met Zion, a calm, well-spoken software engineer with eyes that always looked like they were carrying a secret, she believed she'd finally met her story's protagonist. They met during a book fair. He was lost, searching for a title he couldn't remember the name of, and she helped him find it, The Alchemist. That moment spiraled into late-night phone calls, long drives filled with deep conversations, and a quiet, comforting love that felt like home. After 1.5 years of dating, Zion proposed at the same bookstore where they first met. It was simple, thoughtful, and perfectly aligned with Zara's nature. Their families approved, their friends celebrated, and preparations began. Zara took leave from her college 2 weeks before the wedding. The event was going to be held at a beautiful garden hall, an evening ceremony under fairy lights and jasmine garlands. She had even written her own vows, which she practiced at night in front of the mirror, trying not to cry. But as perfect as things appeared, subtle oddities began slipping through the cracks. One evening, while they were finalizing the guest list, Zion seemed unusually distant. He stared at a name, Kashif Bhatti, for a long time before crossing it off. "Who's that?" Zara asked gently, setting down her cup of tea. "Old friend. Not relevant anymore," he muttered without looking up. Zara raised an eyebrow but let it go. Zion was a private person, he'd always been. Sometimes too private. But she trusted him. She had to. They were getting married. Another time, 2 days before the wedding, Zara walked into the living room while her mother and Aunt Sima were whispering. "She deserves to know," her aunt was saying. "But not now. Let her have this moment," her mother replied. Zara stood quietly, unnoticed for a moment. The silence that followed when they saw her was too abrupt, too heavy. "What's going on?" she asked with a nervous laugh. "Just discussing your Mendy music playlist," her mother said quickly. Too quickly. She smiled. That smile women learn to use when something doesn't sit right, but they're too exhausted to fight it. That moment was filed away in her mind, but again, she didn't pursue it. Zara's world was filled with excitement and chaos in those final days. Last-minute fittings, henna appointments, makeup trials, and menu tastings. Her friends showered her with laughter and gifts, her siblings teased her endlessly, and her father, though usually stern, hugged her every morning as if he were preparing for goodbye. And Zion? He was sweet, present, and calm, at least on the surface. He never raised his voice, never argued, and always listened. But even his calm had started to feel eerie, as if it was covering something turbulent beneath. On the eve of the wedding, he called Zara at midnight. "Can I ask you something?" he said softly. "Of course. If someone did something terrible once but they changed, truly changed, do you think they still deserve happiness?" Zara sat upright in bed, confused. "Is this about someone you know?" There was silence for a beat too long. "Yet just someone I know." "I believe people can change, Zion. But truth and accountability come first. Without them, there's no real happiness." He didn't say anything for a while. Then he whispered, "I hope that's true," and hung up. She stared at her phone, heart drumming a little faster. That wasn't just about someone he knew. She knew it, but there was no space for doubt now. Tomorrow was her wedding day. Her dream was finally becoming real. The morning of the wedding arrived in a blur of excitement and nerves. Zara was up at dawn, her best friend Sumbul helping her prep for the salon. Laughter filled the room as Zara's nieces ran around, pretending to wear her bridal dupatta. Her father came in, his eyes moist, and kissed her forehead. "You look like your mother did when I married her," he said softly, voice cracking. At the salon, stylists fussed over her hair, her dupatta, her jewelry, layers upon layers of beauty being stitched onto her body like armor. Her heart pounded beneath it all, partly from excitement, partly from unease she couldn't shake. By evening, the venue was buzzing. Guests had arrived. The canopy was glowing with fairy lights. The air smelled of roses and sandalwood. The carry was ready. The photographer was adjusting lenses. And Zion was nowhere to be found. Everyone kept checking their phones. His best man paced nervously. Zara sat in the bridal suite, alone, feeling her heartbeat grow louder than the music outside. Half an hour passed. Then another. And then her father walked in, his face pale. "He's not here." The sentence landed like a blow to the chest. "What?" Zara whispered, her throat suddenly dry. "He's gone. His phone's off. No one can find him." Zara stared at him in silence, everything inside her slowly fracturing. This wasn't just cold feet. This wasn't a delay. This was something else. Something unimaginable. Zara couldn't move. For a moment, everything in the bridal suite went silent. The noise from outside, the laughter of distant guests, the slow melody of instrumental music, the sound of cutlery and clinking glasses, all faded away as if someone had turned off the volume of the world. "Gone?" The word echoed in her mind like a scream. She blinked at her father, unable to process the information. His lips were still moving, saying something. Maybe trying to reassure her, maybe trying to make sense of the chaos himself, but she couldn't hear a word. "He's not here." Those words rang louder than any explosion ever could. She slowly stood up, her embroidered lehenga heavy and suffocating, as if it were suddenly stitched with bricks. Her dupatta slipped off her shoulder and dragged behind her like a chain. The mirror across the room reflected not a bride, but a ghost. Eyes lined with kohl, lips painted a muted rose, skin glowing, and yet there was nothing alive in that reflection anymore. Sumbul burst into the room, breathless. "We're still checking. Maybe he got into an accident. Maybe his phone died." Zara turned sharply toward her. "No," she said. "No one disappears like this on their wedding day." Her voice cracked, but there was steel behind it. Zara's phone buzzed. A message from Zion. Just one line. "I'm sorry. I couldn't go through with it. Please don't look for me." The screen nearly fell from her hand. Sumbul caught her as her knees gave out. Outside, her family was scrambling to control the damage. Guests were whispering. The carry left quietly. The lights flickered as if embarrassed to still be glowing. And Zara sat in the suite, a fallen goddess, betrayed, humiliated, and completely shattered. Her mother rushed in with trembling hands. "We can tell people it was postponed, that there was a family emergency." Zara looked up. "No," she said, her voice raw. "Tell them the truth. He left me." Silence followed, but Zara didn't flinch. She would not protect a man who had just obliterated her in the most cowardly way possible. 2 hours later, the venue was nearly empty. Close family members and friends were the last to leave, offering sympathy that felt hollow. Her father walked her to the car. She had taken off her heels. Her feet were bare against the cold grass. Her dupatta trailed behind her like the final page of a torn story. When they arrived home, Zara went straight to her room, sat on the floor, and didn't speak for hours. The phone wouldn't stop buzzing, friends, relatives, journalists even. Everyone wanted a comment. Some offered compassion, others disguised curiosity as concern. She turned it off and threw it across the room. Sumbul sat with her into the night, not saying anything, just holding her hand. At around 3 a.m., Zara finally whispered, "What did I do wrong?" Sumbul squeezed her hand. "Nothing. Nothing, Zara. This isn't your fault." But the voice in Zara's mind didn't believe it. Not yet. The next day, she woke up late in the afternoon. Her makeup had dried in cracks across her face. Her pillows were stained. Her body ached in strange places. The house was quiet. Her parents were avoiding eye contact. Her younger brother paced around like he wanted to find Zion and punch him into the next life. But Zara? She didn't cry anymore. Something inside her had gone cold. Not dead, no. Not yet. Just frozen. Then came the letters. On the second day, a courier dropped off an envelope. It was from Zion. No return address. She hesitated for hours before opening it. Her hands shook as she pulled the folded page out. It read, "Zara, I know you hate me. You have every right to. I couldn't say this to your face because I didn't want to destroy your world in front of everyone. I thought leaving quietly would save you the pain. Maybe that was cowardly. No, it was cowardly. But I had to. I have lied to you. Not about loving you, I did. I still do. But about who I really am. There are things in my past that I thought were buried. Things that I thought didn't matter anymore. But someone came back. Someone who knows what I did. I thought I could live with it, hide it, move on, and start fresh. But I couldn't. Not when I looked at you in that dress. Not when I thought about making vows to you while hiding the worst parts of me. I'm sorry, Zara. I hope one day you can forgive me. You deserve better than a man built on lies. Zion**. She read the letter 3 times. Every word stabbed, but one sentence stood out like a wound refusing to clot. Someone came back. Someone who knows what I did. The mystery sliced through her grief. As much as she wanted to fall apart, her mind began to circle this phrase. Who came back? What had he done? Her pain began shifting, morphing into something else. Need. Not for revenge. Not yet. But for answers. The man who once promised to love her had not just abandoned her, he had lied about his very identity. And if she ever wanted to piece herself back together, she needed the truth. The world now saw her as the girl who got left at the altar. But that wasn't her ending. It was her beginning. 3 days had passed since Zara received Zion's letter, but the echo of his words still lingered in every corner of her mind like an unwelcome guest. Someone came back. Someone who knows what I did. It haunted her. Not just because he left, not just because she was publicly humiliated, but because those words implied there was a secret. A dark one. One big enough to ruin a future. Big enough to walk away from love. She sat alone in her bedroom, surrounded by gifts that would never be opened and flowers that had started to wilt. The house had become a strange museum of broken dreams. That night, she made a decision. I need to find out what he meant, she told Sumble. Her best friend didn't try to talk her out of it. She simply asked, where do we start? Zara opened her laptop and typed in Zion's full name. At first, it was the usual, LinkedIn profiles, photos from their engagement, news of the wedding that was now a canceled event trending on local gossip sites. But as she scrolled deeper, she found something buried on the 3rd page of search results, an old newspaper article dated 6 years ago. The headline froze her breath. University student dies in suspicious fire. Arson or accident. Below it, there was a blurry photo of a boy standing beside another young man, one of them unmistakably Zion. The article described a fire that broke out in a university dorm room. One student died, and another was treated for burns. The survivor's name was Zion Khan. The article didn't accuse anyone directly, but it mentioned that there had been rumors of a prank gone wrong, alcohol involved, and a potential cover-up by the university administration to avoid a scandal. Zara leaned back, heart pounding. She had known Zion for nearly 2 years. How had he hidden something like this? He never mentioned this fire, never talked about college. All his stories started after graduation. She had asked once, casually, what was university like for you? And he'd just smiled. A blur. Now she understood why. Do you think he was responsible? Sumble asked, reading the article over her shoulder. Zara's lips trembled. I don't know. But he ran from this. And he ran from me because of it. She went through her old texts with Zion, looking for anything, any name, any clue. Then she found it. A message from 2 months ago. Ran into someone from college today. Ghosts really do come back, huh? At the time, it meant nothing. Now, it screamed like a flare in the dark. Who had come back? She opened Zion's Instagram and scanned the people he'd recently followed. Only one unfamiliar name stood out. Danish Ollie. No mutual friends. Just a single post. A picture of a burned-down building captioned, "Some scars never fade." Zara's gut twisted. She clicked on the name and dug through the man's sparse online presence. Eventually, she found an old Facebook account mostly abandoned. But there were tag photos, and one stood out, a group picture of 5 university boys. Zion was there. So was Danish. And so was another boy, smiling, arms flung around his friends. His name was Adil Mahmoud. The caption underneath had a date. Just weeks before the fire. Zara looked up Adil Mahmoud. Her hands went numb when she found the obituary. It was him. He was the boy who had died in the fire. Heart pounding, she reached out to Danish through Instagram. "Hi. I'm Zara, Zion's former fiancé. I think we need to talk. Please." For hours, there was no reply. She barely slept. Every creak in the house made her jump. Finally, at 3:12 a.m., her phone buzzed. "Meet me at Chai Stop, noon. Come alone." The next day, Zara arrived at the small cafe near the university district. She wore a simple black kurta and sunglasses. She didn't want to be recognized. Danish arrived 10 minutes late, tall, gaunt, and wary. "You're brave," he said, sitting down without a handshake. "Or crazy." "Maybe both," Zara replied. "I need to know the truth. About the fire. About Zion." Danish looked around. Then he leaned forward. "I thought he would have told you by now." "Told me what?" "That it wasn't an accident." "Not completely." Zara's breath hitched. "We were idiots back then. Playing dares, drinking too much. Adil was always the quiet one, the kind guy. Zion, he was different back then. Wild, angry at the world. He had a fight with Adil that night. Said Adil was going to snitch on something we did." "What did you do?" "We broke into the chemistry lab and stole some materials. Harmless, we thought. But Adil found out and warned he'd report it. That night, they fought. Zion was drunk. He locked the door on Adil's side. Thought it was funny. He didn't know the fire would start. Or maybe he didn't care enough in the moment." Zara felt like vomiting. He tried to get the door open after he realized. But it was too late. "And the university?" she asked. "Covered it up. Said it was an accident. Said the chemicals ignited on their own." Zion got a light punishment, academic suspension. Then disappeared. Changed his name slightly. Reinvented himself. Zara stared at him. "Why now? Why did you come back?" "I couldn't live with it. And I saw he was marrying you. You seemed innocent. Like you didn't know who he really was. So I confronted him. Told him if he didn't confess to you, I would." That explained the letter. Explained the running. But it didn't make the ache inside her any lighter. Back home, Zara sat in her room, Danish's voice replaying in her head. He locked the door. He tried too late. Zion wasn't a monster. But he had made a monstrous choice. And instead of facing it, he buried it and walked into her life like it didn't exist. Zara opened her drawer and took out the wedding ring he had given her. She held it for a long time. Then she walked to her balcony and flung it into the darkness. It was time to reclaim her life. The days that followed were quiet, but not the kind of quiet that soothes. This was the silence that follows a storm. The silence of a soul rearranging itself after an earthquake. Zara stopped answering calls. She deleted her wedding Instagram page. She even turned off the news alerts that still buzzed with headlines like "Socialite Bride Abandoned Hours Before Ceremony." They didn't know her. They never did. But she was beginning to know herself. And that was new. Each morning, she rose without waiting for someone to define her day. No makeup. No filters. Just her, a cup of chai, and the raw pain that was slowly shaping into strength. One morning, her mother knocked gently on the door. "Beta, are you okay?" Zara looked up. There were no tears left. "I'm not okay, Amy, but I will be." Her mother walked in, sat beside her, and held her hand. For the first time in weeks, She didn't offer advice. Just presence. That was all Zara needed. Later that day, Zara visited a therapist, something she never thought she'd do. But vulnerability wasn't weakness anymore. It was courage. The therapist, a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Noreen, gently asked her, "Why do you think you're here?" Zara thought, "Because I believed in someone who betrayed me." Dr. Noreen smiled. And because I didn't see myself clearly. I made someone else my mirror. That moment changed everything. Zara began writing again. Journals filled with thoughts she used to keep buried. She painted, too, messy canvases full of fire and storm clouds. It wasn't pretty, but it was honest. She reached out to Sumbul, not for sympathy but to say, "Let's build something. Let's not wait for men or marriage or tradition to validate us." Together, they began working on a blog for women recovering from betrayal, not just romantic but personal, familial, professional. A digital sanctuary. They called it Phoenix Daughters. Zara poured her energy into it like her life depended on it. Maybe it did. She wrote her first post anonymously. "I was left at the altar. But maybe I needed to be. Because now I see, I was never meant to be someone's decoration. I am fire. I am truth. I am becoming." The post went viral within 24 hours. Hundreds of comments came flooding in from women across the country. Some had been cheated on. Some had lost jobs unjustly. Some had been made to feel invisible by their families. But all of them saw themselves in Zara's voice. And just like that, something within her clicked. She was no longer the woman waiting for Zion. She was the woman who had survived him. One evening, as she walked through the bazaar near her childhood home, a stranger stopped her. "Are you the Phoenix writer?" Zara hesitated, then nodded. The woman hugged her. "You saved me. I was going to end everything. But then I read your words." Zara held her tighter than she ever thought she could. That embrace wasn't just a moment, it was a homecoming. Not to a person. To herself. But healing wasn't linear. Some nights still stung. Some memories came back when she least expected them, his laugh, his hand brushing hers, the dreams they made. But instead of running, she faced them. One day, while cleaning her drawer, she found the letter Zion had left behind. She had read it so many times, the paper was soft at the folds. But this time, she read it not as a broken bride, but as a woman who had outgrown her need for closure. He wrote, "I thought I could run from my past, but it follows like a shadow. I left you because I love you too much to stay in your life. You deserve light. I only know darkness." She whispered into the air, "You don't get to decide what I deserve. Not anymore." That night, she burned the letter. Not out of anger, but release. She wasn't seeking revenge. She wasn't chasing answers. She was rewriting her narrative. The next morning, a media outlet reached out. "We'd love to interview the voice behind Phoenix Daughters," the email read. "You're becoming a symbol of strength." Zara smiled. Not because of the fame, but because people were no longer associating her with a man. They were seeing her for her. At the interview, the journalist asked her, "What would you say to the woman who still waits for someone to come back?" Zara didn't hesitate. "I'd tell her, stop waiting. Start becoming. Don't build a home in someone else's absence. Build a kingdom in your presence." That line trended online for days. But for Zara, it wasn't about trends. It was about truth. She returned home that evening, her hair undone, her soul light. Her mother looked up from the living room. "You look like yourself again." Zara smiled. "No, Amy. I look like who I was always meant to be." It had been 6 months since Zara was left at the altar. 6 months since the worst day of her life flipped into the most powerful chapter of her becoming. The spring sun poured into her studio apartment, where she now lived independently. Her family had initially resisted the idea. A single woman living alone? Unheard of. But she was gentle yet firm with them. "This isn't rebellion," she told her father. "It's rebirth." Today, her mornings were sacred. She'd water her plants, all named after goddesses, light her favorite incense, and sit cross-legged in her little writing nook. Phoenix daughters had grown beyond what she imagined. They now hosted workshops, healing circles, and even published an ebook of essays from women across the globe. Sumbul managed operations, while Zara remained the soul of the movement. The betrayal that once drowned her had become her most powerful tide. One afternoon, she received an unexpected message. It was from Zion. Not an apology, not a desperate attempt to reconnect. Just 4 lines. I heard about what you've built. I'm proud of you. You were always light. I'm sorry I didn't know how to stand in it. She stared at it for a moment, the way one looks at an old wound that doesn't hurt anymore. And then she deleted it. No anger, just closure. Zara had no space left for half-built men or broken explanations.
She was whole now.
She had stitched herself back together, thread by thread, with tears, truth, and transformation. She visited her parents that weekend. The house smelled of cardamom and memories. Her father greeted her with his usual mix of stern love and cautious pride. During dinner, her younger cousin blurted, "So, are you ever going to get married?" The room went still. Zara laughed softly. "I might," she said, "but not out of expectation. Only when I find someone whose soul dances with mine." Her father looked at her, really looked at her, and smiled. "She doesn't need to be anyone's wife to make us proud," he said. Zara's eyes filled with quiet tears. That moment, more than any award or headline, meant everything. Later that night, she stood on the terrace, watching the stars. She thought about all she had lost, the illusion of love, the version of herself that once begged to be chosen, the fantasy of a perfect wedding. And she thought of all she had gained. Freedom, truth, sisterhood, purpose. Sometimes the universe doesn't give you what you think you want. It gives you what your soul needs to grow. Zara's heartbreak wasn't a punishment. It was an awakening. A few weeks later, at one of their in-person healing events, a young woman named Alina nervously approached her. "You probably don't remember me," she said. Zara tilted her head. "I'm Zion's cousin," Alina whispered. "I was at the wedding." Zara took a breath. "What brings you here?" Alina's voice trembled. "I've been living a lie too. Watching what you've done gave me the strength to leave someone who dimmed my light." Zara didn't flinch. She hugged her. Pain recognized pain, but healing welcomed healing. By the end of the evening, Alina was leading a poetry circle, her voice no longer shaking. Zara watched from the corner, smiling. The past had brought her another piece of closure, not through confrontation, but through transformation. As the seasons changed, Zara changed with them. She traveled, solo trips to Hunza, Lahore, Istanbul. She collected moments, not things. Wrote poems on napkins. Took selfies without makeup. Danced barefoot at Sufi festivals. Laughed louder than she had in years. One night, back in her apartment, she received a package. It was from a publishing house. "We want to publish your memoir." Zara stared at the letter. Her story, the one she thought was shameful, too broken to be told, was now a beacon for others. She called the book Left at the Altar, Found at My Core. It became a national bestseller. But more than sales, what mattered were the messages, thousands of them, from women saying, "You helped me come home to myself." Zara often returned to the mosque she once cried in, the night she was abandoned. But this time, she didn't kneel in despair. She knelt in gratitude. "Ya Allah," she whispered, "thank you for not giving me what I asked for. And thank you for giving me what I didn't even know I needed." A woman walked past and gently said, "Are you Zara from Phoenix?" Zara smiled. "I'm just Zara, a girl who got broken and decided to become gold." She walked out into the world, the night air filled with jasmine and a full moon. She wasn't waiting for a savior anymore. She had saved herself, and she would never again let anyone steal her shine.